Welcome to Rebecca Sounds Reveille. What a delight do I have for you. This treat is really rocking today because with me I have a director, a writer who is known for two 2017 and 2018 movies called Grit, the film, and something that's coming out in 2020, Vixens and Villains. With me today, I'm delighted to bring to you Taurean Peterson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ms. Rebecca. Thank you. It's great being here.
I am absolutely excited with what you have going on. You have first two shows, 2017 and 18, Grit. Your films are incredible. I want you to tell the audience a little bit how you got started in the film industry, if you would share that before you go into both of those.
Yes. I started in 2016 going to some film industry meetups, and that's where I was able to meet quite a few different actors who are actually starring in my films. And from there, we wanted to start doing different projects. I also had a friend of mine who owns a reception hall, and so he does a lot of recordings for weddings. And so when I told him about my passion as far as doing film, he was like, man, I love doing film as well. And I have all this equipment. And I was like, well, we need to put it to use. And so that's pretty much how that got started. You know, I had access to all these different actors, and now I had access to all this equipment. And it was now like, let's put it together.
So normally I will tell you, Taurean, it takes me a long time to really put together something for the audience that I can deliver by the end of the show that they can take away and go, boom, you know, this is something that I can use right now that's going to go change my life. You just nailed it in like the first 30 seconds in saying that to do something that you have a passion for, you can do something that can change your life through meetups because you gain a circle of influence, and that will also allow you to gain skills, and your circle of influence just grows and grows and grows, and you never know what's going to happen from this. And in your case, here you are, you've done something absolutely incredible because you've taken all of this interest and turned it into two very successful films, Grit and Grit, both in 2017 and 18, which are really exciting because it's led you into something that's getting ready to launch in 2020.
Right. I did Grit in 2017, and then I did Mr.Cutter in 2018.
Okay.
Yes. And both, you know, Mr.Cutter was, well, Grit was like a short action film, and then Mr.Cutter was like my little throwback to the days of Tales from the Crypt. If your audience and you guys remember that from the 90s.
I love it.
So, yeah, I wanted to make a little homage over to like Tales from the Crypt. So I did something that was similar to that. Both came out great. And then from there, I wanted to say, okay, I've done a couple of short films. Now I want to try to do a full feature.
Now, this full feature, though, when it started for you, has been quite an interesting journey as it's gone so far. And there's still more to come. I'm so excited about what's going on with this. You have developed this whole thing. And from what we've talked about off air to where it's at, it's just absolutely unreal. Can you share with the audience? I don't want you to deliver everything because they really need to become engaged with what you're doing, because this is really an incredible film with where it's going, with where it's, this is just, the journey is unbelievable in itself. And I really want them to connect with you as soon as the show is over because this is fantastic. But just tell us a little bit, tell the audience a little bit about this, because there's a lot here that is really enticing and is really going to keep you at the edge of your seats. And that's all I'm really going to be allowed to say for the moment.
So yes, Vixens and Villains is a detective crime film. It has aspects of suspense, thriller, action, definitely the crime aspect as well. It's kind of a hodgepodge of a lot of my favorite directors, what they did, and then I just put like my own twang on it. But the storyline is pretty much about two private investigators who are hired by this lady who's looking for her missing sister. And when they start looking into the investigation, they uncover a conspiracy that involves organized crime, corporations, and politicians.
What is really cool with what you just shared is that for someone who says, oh, I really don't like just crime movies. I like this. It's going to fit in that genre. You can still come see it. I really don't like that genre. Well, it fits into this one. There's going to be something in this film that you're going to like. So you really, like you said, that hodgepodge is really going to be able to draw in a lot of different people's flavor for film. And it's also going to allow them to not only enjoy what they like, but also embrace some new things that maybe they haven't seen for a while, or maybe thought they didn't like, and now they're going to find an interest in another genre that they didn't. We do change throughout life. And when I will tell you, as a teenager, I wasn't really thrilled about classical music, but I love it now. And so I think sometimes that changes with us too, in the types of things that we watch on television or in the theater, or even with just watching live theater. Right. So here's the other thing with that. What makes you a good writer and a good director is that you can put your own uniqueness to this. And you said you've got your own spin, your twinge, all of this in there. So that's the tornado, the fire, the passion that you have coming to life with just some of these everyday things that just blow it all up on screen. And this is what is so exciting about what you're doing.
Well, thank you so much for that. I think that one of the things that, to answer your question, that makes me, a decent writer, because I'm still wanting to get even better and better.
No, we always say we're good writers. Always.
I like to always try to stay somewhat humbled, but I do, I let the people, when they see it, and they'll be like, oh, I really like this, but I always strive for one to give the audience a quality product. And so with that said, being at least a very, a good writer is, the qualities of that is actually doing research. And we research your topic, we research your characters, their motivations, what's going on, and you're able to tie that in. And, I'm also a history buff. So I love history. I love learning about a lot of different things. I don't even like, science and all those different things. Watching biographies, learning about other people. And when you do that, you kind of get a hold of the human condition. And I think when you have access to knowing the human condition, that's what's going to make you into a good writer, and also that's going to make you into a good director. A lot of directors don't always like to write their stuff, but the ones that do are really good, like Quentin Tarantino, he writes all of his stuff. Akira Kurosawa, he's a Japanese director that was back in the 40s and 50s. And he had something, I saw a YouTube video about him, and he was talking about how his students would come up or students would come up and knock on his door and say, "Hey, I want to be a great director like you. What is the key? What's the secret sauce? What's the secret ingredient to it?" And he thought that they was going to say, "Hey, it's about composition, or it's about framing, or it's about blocking your actors, or it's about," and he said, "No, you need to write. You need to write, you need to write, you need to write." And when you do write, that allows you to go into the mindset of your characters, and so that you can understand about drama, you can understand about motivation, you can understand about heartbreak, you can understand what makes those characters tick. And when you have that, that's what makes good cinema, like Alfred Hitchcock always says.
Yes.
People are going, they're going to see motion pictures, moving pictures, not just, they could just stay home and read if that was the case, So you want to, if you have all those things together, then you can start making quality cinema.
You have such an eloquent way of saying that, because we have been taught, and education is crucial, right? Because like when we were growing up, one of the things that came across TV were commercials with segments of bits of information, and I would say, "The more you know." So, I mean, I'm not saying that by any means, but do you remember these little segments?
Right.
Right? And we don't see these things anymore. Yeah. But the bottom line is, the more information that we have, the better that we're able to absorb, and then, of course, project other things that now our neurons and synapses are putting together, and our own unique personalities and character is able to put together and then project back onto the world. And so this is incredible what you're saying, because we are schooled to write. And I'll remember my college English class said, the instructor, succinct. You need to know what succinct is, right? Succinctly, and you're really scared to death about turning in your writing paper, because it's going to come back with all these marks, and you're waiting for the criticism to come back, because all you want to do is convey the creativity that you have. And this isn't going to come back as constructive criticism. This is going to come back as English grammar criticism. And that's good, because we do need to know how to write, because conveying things, of course, can be different where commas are placed and periods and so on and so forth. But what is most important too is getting your idea out, and free-flowing ideas are essential to getting to the next part of where we need to take the audience. And I agree with this 100%, and I love how eloquently you have placed that information in our mind.
Oh, absolutely. And just for your viewers, you don't have to go to school. I didn't go to film school. My film school has actually just been online and YouTube, and diving into tons and tons of videos. You do have to put the time and effort into it, but you don't have to go and go and pay for schooling. You can pick up your camera, and then you can start playing around. But I think, though, for if there's anyone that's aspiring to be a director too, just like Akira Kurosawa said, I think it's best to also to write your stuff. And helping you write is going to help you produce that drama. One of the things that I saw, even for some of the screenwriting videos that I saw, some of the teachers, they were saying what they was so frustrated with their students about is that in their scripts, there was no motivation for their characters to do what they said that they were going to do. And there was no conflict. Where's the drama? There's nothing going on. It's like, okay, they're going to the store, they're seeing somebody, but why? What's going on? It's just there was no there was no motivation for the characters to be doing what they're supposed to be wanting to do. And I think that's important. You got to have motivation for your characters. You got to have it so that and for that motivation, you got to have drama. So even if it's something simple like going to the store, okay, maybe they run into a bully, and then now they're either going to have to do two things. It's either fight or flight, and then that's building up the drama. If they decide to fight, then you say, you show how they was able to get away, and how that bully was able to still want to probably chase them down. There's drama and conflict with that. If they decide that they want to fight, probably it'd be best if it's in the opening scene, if it's in your first act, that they probably get beat up, so that you have your character, so that the next time, they get beat up, then they might learn. It's like the Karate Kid story. They get beat up, they learn from the master, and then at the end, they're able to see that bully again, and they're able to take him out. So
yes,
these are things that we always see, but it was crazy that screenwriters were saying that they were having trouble like getting these ideas for their students to learn.
Okay.
With me, go ahead.
Well, it's interesting you say this, because and this is kind of sad. First, when you were talking about being self-taught, this is totally something I support, because I learned so much through my own reading and education. So did Abraham Lincoln and some of our other presidents who were also self-taught lawyers. They didn't go to law school. So if you want something, you can achieve it. It doesn't have to be if you can't afford or whatever. You can achieve it. But it's really interesting that you talk about this, because I want to do a little bit of contrast and compare, and this is in the writing area, right? So creative writing is what we want to do to really bring to life something. And when you're going in certain fields, such as like in the field that I was in, law enforcement, you really can't have a lot of creative writing. It's the facts. And I have a colorful palette when it comes to my writing. So
right.
when I started writing police reports, it was kind of like, there's a little too much fluff here. You kind of need to just stick to the facts, ma'am. And so there are times certain things are needed and sometimes they're not. But here's the thing. We need to be educated on different terms and knowledgeable on different things so that we can convey through expression, through the words, expressive words, what we want to come across. And in the terms of film, if we're going to write something, those words are important, because when someone goes to pick it up and direct it or produce it, and it's going to come to life on screen, somebody else needs to be able to capture that visual through the camera and convey it to the audience, right? So it's important.
Well, that's a yes and a no.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, a lot of that's why Stephen King wouldn't be a good screenwriter, because Stephen King he's a great novelist. And see, there's a difference between the novelist and good screenwriters. When you're a screenwriter, unless you're writing something for your own film, like I've seen with Quentin Tarantino, his scripts can be full of detail because he knows that he's going to direct them. But typically, when you're writing a script, you want to just say the main aspects and the main points, and then the director then they take their own vision from what you've said in the script, and then they apply it. So you don't, like, for instance, if Stephen King was, when you read a Stephen King book, when he goes and says like a character into the room, he's going to talk about everything that was in that room. He's going to say,
Yes.
you know, what the wallpaper was looking like, what magazines were on the desk, you know, what year those magazines were, you know, so forth and so forth. As when you do a screenplay, you just kind of give a little bit of, you just say the character went into a room, the room was nicely laid out, there was some magazines on the table. I mean, if the magazines were important fact, but you would just pretty much say, he went into an office, it was immaculately laid out. And then unless there's some other details, you wouldn't go necessarily into those other details. One of the main reasons why you do that as a screenplay writer is that directors and also executives, they don't have time to read all of that. They just want to get to the meat and potatoes of what's going on. So if there's so much in the description part, they're like, I'm not trying to read a novel.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to condense your script too. Most people, you know, executives and directors, they're used to, unless we're talking about something that's going to be an epic, like Saving Private Ryan or something, or Schindler's List or something on that level, you want to stay in that sweet spot of about 114 to about 125 pages, because that's going to be typically like the hour and 90 minutes, 2 hours of movie time. But when you have so much detail in that, and you have 10 pages in this just description, they're going to toss that script, or they're going to give it to somebody else and say, can you break this down? You know, they're going to do one of those two things. So being a good screenplay writer, it's funny, less is better. In novels, more is better.
See, this is a really good thing that you are able to share this with me and the audience, because for those who've thought about writing, whether it's going to be going into a novel format or whether it's going to go to be doing a screenplay, and there's a lot of people who say, I want what's in my head to become a film. I know it's going to make a good movie. They've got to know how to do this. And definitely, if they're going to pitch, I'm going to guess, and you would know this, I'm going to guess that there are thousands upon thousands of screenplays that Netflix, Amazon Prime, these are being pitched to them all the time. And if it isn't concise in this respect, or succinct, as my English teacher would say, that it's going to get
Right.
to the round file or not read or whatever. And a really good idea and a really good storyline is going to not make it. Whereas if it had been written the way that you just shared, really could have made a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Those things will, because since they're reading so much, there's a script format, and if you follow that format, you have a better chance of it being read, and then have a better chance of it actually getting into the right person's hands.
I love it.
If it's not following that format, if it's not following that format, then they're just I don't have time for this. Toss it.
Well, I mean, it makes sense.
You know,
how much time do we really have on our hands throughout the day? I mean, there's only 24 hours, and we have to handle Facebook and Twitter and all of our social media, along with everything else that we do. I'm obviously kidding here, but it's true. We have a lot of things that we have on our plate, and there's only so many hours in a day. And when we have a mission to accomplish, we have to get in as much as we can and make everything as concise as possible. This is really exciting. You are doing some really incredible things. You're a very talented man. I'm really excited about Vixens and Villains. Tell me a little bit, and tell the audience a little bit about where they can connect with you and find out more information about your film, Vixens and Villains, and follow you with what you got coming next, because I'm not going to give that away, but you've got more coming.
Yes, as far as the film is concerned.
As far as everything,
yes,
you're on the move, and I love it. And I'm not telling anymore.
Well, let me tell your audience a couple of things about Vixens and Villains too. I know in the title, you automatically know with Vixens, there's going to be beautiful women, but there's also, I have it where I wrote a lot of strong female character roles, and some of them are some of the ladies are good, some of the ladies are actually bad, but I have it. A lot of the action sequences and fight sequences are actually all done by the ladies. So that's going to be, it's going to be on some Kill Bill type stuff. Yeah. So I have a lot of the women that are going to be getting active on screen. So that's going to be a little bit different than what people are accustomed to seeing. And so, you know, we have the damsels in distress, but the lead lady characters are also, you know, they hold their own as well, which I think women can definitely appreciate that.
You're going to bring a couple of, okay, so you're going to hit the female audience because they're going to be like, yes, women are doing this, and I'm coming and supporting that. And you're going to have the guys going, eye candy all the way, this rocks. So you're just going to, you've hit it all the way around. I've got to tell you, Taurean, this is
yeah, I think the ladies when they see the lead guy characters too, there's a lot of good-looking guys in the film too, so that are doing their thing as well. So just a little bit for everybody, you know, the older audience. I'm going to be able to show, you know, with one of the private investigators, it's like a throwback to Columbo and to the times of Humphrey Bogart with that crime noir type feel, you know. With a little bit of the urban audience, they're going to be able to see that the other private investigator, he's more like the Will Smith from Bad Boys, you know, Miami Vice type stuff. But you're going to see how their synergy works together on film, which is going to be something different as well. So we have all these different things in there, and it's all going to be intertwined, and it's all, I think it's all going to be very successful, and the audience is going to enjoy it. I would definitely like for you guys to connect with me on Facebook. You can look it up, Vixens and Villains movie fan page, and I have content on there already, pictures. I have a promo teaser on there as well from a scene that you can check out. Please come, like, share, comment, and stay connected, because there's more to come.
There is more to come, and I want to thank you so much for being on the show today.
I want to thank you so much, Ms. Rebecca. It was a pleasure.
I love it. I've had so much fun with you, Taurean, and I just want to thank all of you for tuning in today. And before I let you go, I want to share with the audience a couple of things. I want to make sure that they spell everything correctly and that they don't get anything mixed up, like I did earlier. One, Vixens is Vixens and Villains. You will also find Taurean at Taurean, and that's Peterson with one T, Peterson. And he is on Facebook. You'll find the Facebook page also there, and anywhere else on social media, IMDb. You've got to check this out. I want to thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Rebecca Sounds Reveille. As I always tell you, thank you. I do appreciate you tuning in every week, and I ask that you share this with your friends, your family, your coworkers, everybody that you know, and even those you don't. Thanks again. Welcome to Rebecca Sounds Reveille. I have a show today that is going to really be of interest to you because I have with me a returning guest who's a financial expert and the Rebecca Sounds Reveille financial expert who is, like you said, a returning guest and a regular guest. He's been with me on and off for quite a long time over the course of the last couple of years. And today we're going to talk about some very important issues that are really going to be crucial for you to pay attention to because they are going to directly impact your finances or the direction of your finances. And with me today, my financial expert is Brad Williams. He's the CEO of Brad Williams Financial Services. And his number one goal is to build a foundation, a solid foundation for a financial house. That is your financial house. And his singular goal in this financial foundation is to treat clients as if they were his own parents. So his unique skills in over 25 years of addressing financial concerns is to really listen and meet the needs of what the client is looking to address concerns about. And so this is something that sets him and his financial service company apart from everybody else. And so I'd like to bring him with us now. Brad Williams, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me again. It's good to see you.
I am really excited to see you too, and I love to have you back on the show because everything that you talk about is always so pertinent to what we need to hear and address in our own lives. And that's what you do, is you look at what we need to build our foundation. And today we're going to talk about a couple of things. And the first topic I want to touch on is bankruptcy, because one of the things about, 15 or 20 years ago was everybody said, if you're going to file bankruptcy, you need to file it now because bankruptcy laws have changed or they're going to change. And so everybody was kind of in a hurry to do so. And then there was a change in the bankruptcy sort of field or market, if you will. And now there's some other things that are starting to happen, and they're saying it could actually get worse than where it's at.
Yep. Yeah, could be. That's what, when you have a long expansion like we've had, and I say expansion, the market has gone up. When people see their 401ks going up, they are more optimistic. And one of the issues we had is credit. And so when people feel good, they tend to buy things. And companies and stores and all make it real easy for you to say, hey, buy it now, pay it later. And so people can get in over their head before they know it.
This is true. And we're seeing sort of on a bubble, not like the real estate market, but in terms of debt load now, where people are just loaded with debt in a lot of areas, from credit to, and I guess that would be really the one thing. Yeah. But from cars to even trivial things, we're putting things like going to the convenience store to buy things on credit.
Yeah, and if you watch when you go to the store, I tend to still spend a lot of cash. That's a way for me to help manage what I spend. I put a certain amount in my pocket for the week, and all those little frivolous things, coffees and things like that. That's a way for me to manage it. But when you think about the lifestyle of people, they can go in and twice a day go to Starbucks and spend $6-7 a time, and that's $12. They put it on their debit card or their credit card, and it doesn't seem like much at the time, but when you multiply that by 20 work days, maybe a few weekend days, that can really add up for discretionary spending that all of a sudden, bang, it hits you at the end of the month. And if you've done that in other ways as well, you've gone to restaurants and, you drop $15, $20, $25 down for lunch. And so often, I see it in a lot of my clients. When they retire, they tend to eat out more because it's more relaxing. Well, if you can afford it, it's great. But if you're doing it just out of convenience and you're not really watching the dollars, it can add up quick.
That is really a good point, because especially when you get into an older age, or if you have a situation where you end up living alone, sometimes outweighing whether eating out and cooking for one person or buying groceries and wasting food because it doesn't get eaten is something else to consider too. So
yes, you're right. And I've experienced that myself. And so you just have to find the best values you can get for meals and control your meals. Maybe eat some cereal for, there's many times I go home and I just have a bowl of cereal for dinner because I tend to eat with clients for lunch. So we have a decent lunch. So, but it's all about managing what you've got going on. And so many people, they just wake up, they put it on the card, and then all of a sudden, bam, before they know it, that card's got a lot on it. And then when you throw in the fact that it's so easy. When you used to shop before, you had to go to the mall. And you go to the mall and you wander around and you might see some clothes you like, some trinkets you like, and you may buy, you may not. But you actually had to physically get up, get in the car, and go to the mall. Well, you got the mall on your computer right now. And
yes.
So you can get on and you can buy, and Amazon makes it so easy. I'm a voracious reader, so I buy a lot of books on Amazon. My wife always wrinkles her brow when the Amazon box comes on the front porch because, Brad got some more books. But it's so easy to just get online, look at what you want, click on it, and, you may already have your credit card saved in there. And so I tend to buy the books that I buy with the American Express points I accumulate. So that way I'm not spending cash on it. That's just money I've accumulated as a bonus, so to speak. So,
Yes.
You just have to look at things. If I want my pleasures, how am I going to pay for them, and then manage how you pay for them.
Well, that's a good point, because there is a lot of rewards that different agencies offer, from American Express to Visa, MasterCard, as well as there's apps out there that are offering different types of rewards for making purchases through their app, or even different sites like Mr. Rebates or Ebates and things like that, so that you are actually starting to at least have a little bit of something where you get something back from your spending. But that ultimately doesn't take the major heap of frivolous spending away from what we're doing. And so one of the things that is really interesting, and I know that this is, one of your numbers, that from July of 2018 to 2019, there was a surge of 3% bankruptcy filings, which was a total of 64,283 filings that was up. And the total overall bankruptcy, and that was US wise, the pace was exceed over 777,000 for last year. These are huge numbers. And some of the things I think to go along with this that you're saying in reference to how easy it is, the clickable spending, how easy it is in reference to this, is how we can look at debt as throwaway also. I can go to a bankruptcy attorney, file for this, the debt's wiped free, and I'm issued this brand new card, and I can go ahead and conduct my spending the way I did before and get in debt again.
Right. Credit's easy. If you pay your bills on time, it's pretty easy to get credit. and you can abuse that real quick. You just got to manage it. One suggestion I would make to people is, one thing I do is, if it's something that's optional, I might think about it, maybe even put it in my Amazon basket, and then just not execute it, and then come back 2 or 3 days later. And if I still feel the need that I've got to have whatever that was, then I'll go ahead and get it. But maybe put a pause in there. Ask yourself, this would really be nice to have, but do I really need it? Well, let me think about that for a couple of days. And I think what happens with me is that oftentimes I'll come back and go, yeah, it sounded good at that moment, but I can probably do without that. I can make use of something else. So it's just controlling your spending. And I think, too, is as we get to they're pushing on recession now. Some people are saying with the inverted yield curve, I don't know that we're going to have a recession yet. But the fact is people have felt good for a while, and when they feel good, they tend to buy things. They have a normalcy bias. And what I mean by that is that things are going good. I've got good job prospects. Maybe I got a promotion. Maybe I moved to another company, moved to another job, got a nice raise. And, like that old song from the 80s, the future's so bright, I got to wear shades, if you remember that one. And so they get in this normalcy bias that's always going to continue. And so then they start acting like they have that money already instead of the fact that it's coming over time. And so they get into trouble that way.
So I want to talk about this, and it'll lead us into the inverted yield. In fact, some of the things for us to think about is that this is something that we don't. We usually think about spending as a personal issue, that this is a direct issue with me and my family, or me and myself, and it doesn't affect anybody else. Well, in all reality, it does, because our spending has a direct impact on our economy, and our lack of being able to pay for it has a direct impact on our economy in many ways. And one of them is higher prices. If you don't pay for it and the creditor doesn't get their funds, they will increase the prices. So when we're talking about the economy as a whole, now we're looking at some things that you're going to talk about here in a second, referencing inverted yields and referencing the recession or potential recession that we could be broaching upon.
And one thing I'd add to that is, you hear a lot of people talk about, oh, we need a living wage. Oh, we need a $15 an hour minimum wage. And you've got to really think about that, because I can tell you a story that happened back in the 90s. I used to go to this one little quick restaurant here, a regional chain, and I would have breakfast there. I was working in such a way that every morning I'd show up there and I'd get there for breakfast and read my paper for a little while before I went to work. And I'd come in and I'd order the same thing. I'm a kind of a creature of habit. And so they got to know me there, and I would come in and they'd have it ready for me, and I'd give them they'd see me pull in the parking lot, they'd get it ready, I'd give them the exact change, walk over, sit down, read my paper. And then they raised the minimum wage. And the next time I came in, the manager was waiting on me at the cash register. She says, well, we've had to increase our prices, and so we just want to let you know that, it's gone up this. And I said, great, that's fine. I gave him the money and moved on. And I sat down at my table and I chuckled to myself, because here you have these politicians saying, I'm going to help you out by raising the minimum wage. And what happens is prices just raise.
Right.
So if you raise the wages to $15 an hour minimum wage, it's not going to help those lower income people, because there's just going to be a corresponding increase in price that's going to eat up that. And it's like what a lot of retirees say about their Social Security raise. Well, yeah, I got a raise in my Social Security, but my Medicare went up too, and it pretty much washed it out. So unless you have a corresponding increase in value, an employer cannot give you more wages without taking it from somewhere else, either
Yes.
jobs, or they've got to decrease the quality of their merchandise or the size. One thing that that a lot of companies have gone to is, the bag of cookies might be the same price as it was last year, but instead of being 25 cookies, maybe there's 20 or 22.
Yes.
So they've reduced the amount in there to keep the price the same so that people don't feel like that they've had a price increase. But you cannot raise wages without a corresponding increase in value, and I think that's the fallacy that a lot of people are buying in this talk of a $15 minimum wage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that makes a lot of sense.
And that affects the lower income people the worst, because they're you take somebody who makes $100,000 a year. If you raise the cost of their hamburger 50 cents, they're just going to blink and reach in for another 2 quarters in their pocket. But you take a lower income family of 4, it may mean the difference between they go to McDonald's or not.
That's true.
And so, you've got to remember that.
That is very true. So the audience may not be familiar with the term of inverted yield. Can you share with us a little bit about what that is and how that affects us?
Yes, when you have a yield curve, and you've got the shorter term, kind of like CDs. You get a year CD, it pays one thing. You get 2 years, it pays a little more. You get 5 years, it pays a little more. So people tend to think, okay, I don't mind locking my money up for a little longer period of time because I'm getting a correspondingly higher interest rate. Well, the problem is when you flood the economy with money like the Federal Reserve and the government's done, is right now shorter term rates are higher than longer term rates. And that's not a basis for a sound economy. One of the problems with low interest rates like we have, and you mentioned a sound economy. Well, if you don't have a solid foundation of savers putting money away, getting a reasonable return, for example, retirees in 2008 could still get 5 and 6% 5-year CDs. And so they could take, and I dealt with this with clients all the time. They might have 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 in a CD in addition to their other returns, because they could count on that safe, guaranteed investment, and it would generate 5%. So if they had $500,000 in a CD, that's $25,000 a year in income without touching their principal. Well, nowadays you can't do that. You might get 1.5. So you've got to take on risk. So right now the risk, those who are chasing risk are getting rewarded, and those who are doing the responsible thing and saving are getting penalized. And that's not a good foundation for a long-term sound economy.
Mm-hmm. So what can people do then to sort of protect themselves and protect their finances in this type of situation?
Well, when we look at things, interest rates have to go up. They may not. I mean, the government may keep them down for quite a while. Japan did that, and they ended up for 20 years having a severe financial issues. They had no growth in their economy. And right now, believe it or not, our interest rates are some of the highest in the world, and we're the safest economy in the world. And that just doesn't, that doesn't make sense, because when you got somebody with a 500 credit score, they're going to pay one price for a car loan, where somebody with an 800 credit score is going to pay a lot less interest rate. So it's kind of reversed. And so there's a lot of money coming over here that's from overseas that's keeping our interest rates down. And we've got to have a more normalized interest rate. Like 10-year treasuries average about 4.5% over time, even though that we've had times like in the late 70s, early 80s, where they were in the 14 to 15 range. That's when you saw home mortgages running, 18, 20%, which was a nightmare for those in that industry. So we've got to do that, but it's got to be done slow. And we've almost backed ourselves in the corner, because typically when the economy does go into recession, one of the things the Federal Reserve does to stimulate it is they lower interest rates, which means they increase the money supply. So interest rates are a function of how much money's in the market. So the more money's out there, the less cost it is, because there's a lot more supply. And so when they want slow down the economy, they'll decrease the money supply, which causes interest rates to rise because there's less money available, so you got to pay more for it. And last fall, when we saw the 10-year Treasury spike up to about 3.2, that's when that last quarter stock market dive happened, because the market is so addicted to cheap money now that when it saw it was not going to get any more, it threw a tantrum and people started selling off and getting doom and gloom. And then when they backed off, that's when we saw the rebound in the first part of the year. But we've got severely low interest rates, and that doesn't take care of people who responsibly save money and don't take risk with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I think what we need to do is really start paying attention to our own, and if we each do this, our own individual participation in how we respond and interact with our finances within the economy, this in turn, as a whole, addresses economical issues. And I don't think we think about those things. We just think about how we're going to get by, and really paying attention to our spending habits and how we pay them. If we're paying attention to our spending based on our financial income, that's a direct impact on how we are able to pay them. And the fluidity of the economy works better when we're all doing our part within our own finances. And not only that, it helps us individually in that respect be able to have a solid foundation with what we're going to do and how we're going to do it and manage it, and then talk to someone like you on how we can actually flourish within the means that we have with where we're at. And if we can look and place these things in the right envelopes, if you will, and going back to old school, this $20 goes to this $20 goes to this, and live within these budgets that we have for our household, ultimately we will end up having a good foundation for our future finances that we may not even being able to look at right now, because we're just, with the numbers are showing, with the bankruptcies there, the debt overload is not something really being able to take a wholehearted look at what can happen for our future. We're really not planning that right now.
And you know, when you take on debt, you make an assumption on the future, and you may come out right, you may not. And one of the reasons bankruptcies are up is the fact that people made a tremendous assumption on the future, and maybe their future didn't come out the way they thought, and so now they're paying the price for it. Mm-hmm. I know we've talked about college in the past. One of the issues with college is you have all these kids that are taking $25,000, $30,000, $40,000 student loans, and they're going away to college, and they're in a program that maybe is a generalized degree program that really is not marketable when they get out. But they've got to do a cost-benefit assessment before they do that. If I'm going to take on this kind of debt because that's the only way I can afford college, is it going to be worth it when I get out? And how soon am I going to be able to pay this loan back? Because if the answer is, well, I'm not sure what kind of job I'll get, well, maybe you need to reassess whether you should go in that degree field or take that loan or even go to college at all. I have clients that have businesses where they're heating and air conditioning and plumbing and electricity. They are begging for apprentices, and those are good paying jobs. And they would love to have good people work for them. And I think so many kids have been brainwashed into thinking that the next step has always got to be college. Well, for those who are entering a field where it's necessary, yes. But if you're not sure what you're going to do, why on earth are you going to go take on student loans? And so many of those kids go and they get marginal grades, and they've got the money in the bank so they don't feel like they need to work. And 40% from one statistic I saw of student loans that are outstanding, the people didn't even graduate.
Yes. And I know that our time is short today, but I want to leave one final thought with the audience, and that is this. oftentimes with everything that we've talked about, we want to think about how patterns are made. And you may have heard about this through fitness, and that is it takes 30 days or so to create a habit. So if spending has been habitual and bankruptcy has been the option, or it's going to be the option for you, don't assume that just by making that choice that your habit is going to change.
Right.
You can
You're
find
exactly
yourself
right.
in the same position that you were in. So talking to somebody like Brad is going to be a perfect place to start if you're not sure where, and also following the things that he has to share through his videos, things on his site. And where can they find you, Brad?
Well, if they've got a financial question, they just need to go to askbradwilliams.com.
Perfect. And I look forward to having you again on the show, because you always are a wealth of information and smart things to place seeds in the audience, in their minds, and in possibly the changes that they make in their lifestyle. So thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
And I want to thank all of you for tuning in to another episode of Rebecca Sounds Family. There is so much to think about. I hope that you have an opportunity not only to listen to this and share this with friends, family, colleagues, loved ones, everybody you know on social media, those you don't, but have an opportunity to take a chance to re-listen and revisit this show again, so that maybe some of the things that maybe didn't quite hit you at first will be able to hit you again at a later time. Thanks for tuning in. I look forward to making sure that you get some more tools and resources on your tool belt.